Hey everybody, welcome to a new video from NZ Pocket Guide. Today we're going to cover everything that there is to know about some really boring paperwork, and that's the New Zealand Traveller Declaration Form and the Traveller's Pass. Okay, Laura, so it is indeed a very boring subject that we're going to cover, but it's something that pretty much everybody has to do when coming to New Zealand, and that is completing the New Zealand Traveller Declaration Form. So what is it and where can you actually do it? Can you do it before you travel to New Zealand?
Well, yes, you have to do it before you travel to New Zealand, and this declaration form was introduced after the COVID-19 pandemic to the arrival formalities for coming to New Zealand, and it's first of all a way to show the New Zealand government that you are vaccinated, that you have a negative COVID-19 test, and it's also a way for the New Zealand government to send you instructions on arrival on how you do self-testing, if that applies to you, whether you can come quarantine-free or not, etc, etc. So you get a lot of information from that as well.
Okay, so what is the New Zealand Passenger Arrival Card? Because I know that a lot of people are getting that a little bit confused between the Traveller's Declaration Form and the Passenger Arrival Card. So this video is about the Declaration Form, but let's talk about the Passenger Arrival Card quickly just to explain what the difference is.
Yes, so the Passenger Arrival Card is something that you actually fill once you're on the plane to New Zealand, and this is more to do with biosecurity, customs and immigration for when you arrive in New Zealand. It's something that has been a part of the arrival process of coming to New Zealand for many, many years. But nowadays there is one extra section on the passenger arrival card which is actually giving some extra details on your, COVID-19 situation, whether you had a vaccination, when was your last test, etc, etc. So there's that information to fill on there as well.
Okay, but this is not what this video is about. If you guys are interested of us covering the New Zealand Passenger Arrival Card, if you want to do some preparation and just, remove some of that stress, just let us know in the comment of this video, and yeah, we'll take that in consideration and create a video for you guys. Now, let's get back to this declaration form. So when do people need to complete their New Zealand declaration form, Traveller Declaration Form, sorry.
So, you need to complete and submit it no more than 24 hours before your first leg of your flight to New Zealand if you're doing a RAT test or a LAMP test for your COVID-19 test, or 48 hours before if you're doing a PCR test. So that depends on what type of COVID-19 test you're going to be doing, and yeah, but you can only submit the results of your negative test either 24 hours or 48 hours before. But you can actually start filling out the declaration form about up to 28 days before your flight to New Zealand. So you can fill up some of those other extra information that you can do before you get your test results. And that just makes the process, a little bit faster for when you do receive your test results, because once you do receive your test results, it's going to be a little bit of a rush to, get it submitted as soon as possible, so that there is processing time for the authorities on the other end to actually do the process of your declaration form and get it back to you on time before your flight. So yeah,
you can plan quite ahead. You can start like almost a month before and do pretty much everything, and then just submit your test results once you have them by like 48 hours before your flight.
And there is a saving feature on the declaration form, so you can start filling it out and save it for later, and then they will send you an email with a code of how to access your saved form after that.
Alright, so in order to get started with this declaration form, you need to go to travellerdeclaration.govt.nz, and there's going to be a link to it in the description of this video. Now, what do people need to prepare before heading on the website and completing their declaration form?
Okay, so there's quite a list of things. So first of all, you need your passport number. You need the first international airport of departure, so you need the name of that. You need the date and time of your first international flight to New Zealand. You need the date that you will arrive to New Zealand. You need the flight number of your flight into New Zealand, and proof of your COVID-19 vaccination or exemption if that applies to you. And this needs to be obviously in a digital format, in PDF, PNG or JPEG format. And as well, you'll need your proof of COVID-19 pre-departure test, again in the same digital format as just mentioned. And you'll need your contact details of when you're in New Zealand. So in other words, the addresses of the places you're going to be staying for the sort of initial part of your stay in New Zealand. And you'll need your details of an emergency contact, and that doesn't have to be someone in New Zealand, that can just be your emergency contact from home. And
very helpful.
Yes. And finally, you need an email address, because that is where they will obviously send your traveller pass and details about your declaration form too.
Alright, so a big part of this New Zealand declaration form is surrounding COVID-19. Obviously, this is their way, the way of the New Zealand government to gather all the information relating to your pre-departure test and your vaccination. Now, we receive a lot of questions about what does a proof of vaccination look like, or what is needed in order to show that to the New Zealand government. So it needs to include a list of very specific items in order to make sure that it is a valid proof of vaccinations. What are those items, Laura?
Yeah, so those items that have to be on your evidence or your proof has to be your name, obviously, the name of the vaccination or vaccines that you've received, the name of the agency that administered them, the name of the place where you received them, and the date of each of the doses, or the date when the primary vaccination was done. So also note that there are more than 30 approved vaccinations for New Zealand, and you can check out the list of all those approved vaccinations on the Traveller Declaration website, but they do cover most vaccinations.
Alright, and when it comes down to proving that you've done a test before traveling to New Zealand, then same thing, like what does it look like, what does this need to include?
Yeah, so your proof here needs to, of the digital copy that you're going to provide, it needs to include your full name, your date of birth or passport number, the type of test, so whether it's a PCR, RAT or LAMP test, the date and time the test was conducted, and obviously remember that that needs to be within 24 hours before departure for a RAT or a LAMP test, or 48 hours for a PCR test. The test result needs to obviously confirm it was negative, and you also, for the PCR test, that requires the name of the testing lab, and if you had a RAT or a LAMP test, that requires the name of the supervising health professional, the supervisor's letterhead or stamp that confirms the supervisor's name. Basically, because that needs to be a supervised RAT or LAMP test, not one that you just take yourself before coming to New Zealand. And yeah, so yep, I was about to before that. Go ahead.
All right. So once you've completed that New Zealand declaration form, New Zealand Traveller Declaration form, then you're going to get a New Zealand Traveller Pass. That is if your declaration is approved. So yes, there is still a little bit of a leeway right here once you submit it for it to be approved or not approved. Now we're going to talk about timelines. How long does it take to get it? You know, that's a question everybody's going to ask.
Yeah, so I have seen that for the Traveller Declaration form, the government officials themselves just say that there's not really a particular processing time. They just ask you to send your declaration form or your complete declaration form and submit that as soon as you get your COVID test results back. So really, don't leave it till really the last minute. I know that 24 hours or 48 hours does really feel like the last minute, but yeah, as soon as you get those test results, just send it to them straight away, so that allows for as much time as possible for it to be processed. But because they know that it has to be within 28 or 24 hours or 48 hours, they do process pretty quickly, but you know, just don't leave it too last minute.
Yes. Alright, so once you get it approved, so let's say everything goes well, and which it will go well for 99.999% of people, it goes well, you get a New Zealand Traveller's Pass, which is something with a QR code that you can have on your phone. What is it used for?
Yeah, so this is, it's a unique QR code for you and this particular travel that you're doing. For instance, you can't use the same code for leaving the country, coming back again, and etc.
You've got to redo it all again.
Yes, exactly. So this is for you specifically on this specific journey, And this is to show, you may have to show it at the airport on check-in. It's likely that you will have to show it in order to board the plane to New Zealand. And you also definitely have to show it once you arrive at the borders of New Zealand. So it's something that is mandatory and you will need to actually enter New Zealand. So that's why it's really important to do. And yeah, so it basically, once you get the results of the declaration form that you submitted and it is approved, then you will get the traveller pass with that QR code, and it will also detail what you need to do once you arrive in New Zealand, whether you need to do self-test or whether it's quarantine-free and you don't need to do anything or something else. The instructions specific to you will be listed in that traveller pass as well.
Alright, so again, this New Zealand Traveller Declaration Form, it must be done by anyone travelling by air to New Zealand, starting basically right now at the time we'll be publishing this video. So that will apply to you, so just make sure you do some research. There is a link to that form in the description of this video, and there is also a link to an article from NZ Pocket Guide from us where we put much more details to help you with that, and there is also some more information about the passenger arrival card, which is something to do in the plane as well. More paperwork, we all love that. Again, if you want us to cover more information about the passenger arrival card, just let us know in the comment of this video. The last question that I'm going to ask myself this time is, will this thing be around forever? Will this traveller declaration form be around forever, or is it one of those fleeting things that the government does for COVID-19 and then it disappears after a few months? The truth is we don't really know right now, but our gut feeling is that this system is going to stay around for quite a while. You know, data is really big business nowadays, and that's a great way for the New Zealand government to gather data about each travellers coming to the country that will help them with tourism policies, as well as monitoring, and maybe even further in the future trying to find digital ways to run visitor satisfaction surveys and all these kind of items. So I don't think that's something that's going to disappear too quickly. So even if you're planning a trip to New Zealand in the next few years, this may still apply to you. Alright, so both Laura and I hope that this video was super useful to you. If it was, make sure to hit the like button to reward all our hard work. You can subscribe to our channel, you can join us on Patreon to get plenty of amazing perks, and thank you again for watching this video. Check out nzpocketguide.com, New Zealand's largest travel guide, and it's all 100% free. Bye bye!
See ya!